Slash. Many will say, the depiction of pure evil, with a heart of total blackness, burnt to the very core.
But would it surprise or even shock you to know that he was born with good intentions, a true carefree heart, and also that he was basically the runt of the litter?
His life story is what burnt his heart to cold black stone, and the only way to really describe how it did that is to show you and tell you as best as we can.
It all begins way back when Slash was first born. He was not, as you may think, an only wolf. He was born into a litter of 3 males, with 2 brothers. Their names were Feather and Rip. They were strong wolves and showed promise from a young age, unlike Slash himself.
Even from birth, Slash was weaker than his siblings, and was to some extent the runt of the litter, and his father did not like that. His parents could have been worse, but that did not make his childhood easy. His mother, Beam, was actually a decent wolf, and cared for Slash well, making sure he was fed and he was strong. But his father, Tide, was not a kind wolf to him. He hated the fact he had a weak son, and behind the group's back, he abused Slash, bullying him and teasing him into becoming a stronger wolf, trying to man him up, but apparently to no avail.
The boys grew up together and aged around 4 months. Feather and Rip were showing good promise to become alphas, and Slash was actually gaining strength and wasn't just a runty weakling anymore. But one tragic midday, all of that changed.
After a good training session with their father, Tide let the boys go for a play in the snow to wind down before their afternoon nap. They were happily playing in a small clearing, with Feather and Rip happily fighting, and Slash sitting in the background watching. After throwing Feather down to the floor and gloating his play victory to the sky, Rip started laughing. All of them started. But suddenly, a splitting noise, followed by a yelp, silenced them all.
The bullet penetrated Rip's chest, killing him instantly. He fell to the floor and Feather started screaming, scrambling to his feet in an attempt to get away. Slash waited for Feather to reach him, and they both began to run. The run lasted merely 5 seconds, until a second bullet screamed through the air and hit Feather in the neck. He fell dead, and Slash was knocked over by the force. He knew he could never stop running or he would die too, so he carried on, and the hunters stopped their pursuit of him.
After arriving home and explaining what had happened to his parents, Beam was horrified, but Tide blamed Slash entirely for not protecting his siblings and flew into a rage. Pinning him down, he gave him the scar that he has today, missing his eye by a millimetre and cutting his ear in the process. That day was the day Slash changed forever, and his good heart was drained to start something else.
With hunters in the northwest of Iceland, the hawks were forced to move further south to escape them. The journey was hard and harsh, lasting over 9 long months. During this time, their male deputy at the time fell ill and died after 6 months of journeying. With both other sons dead and no other obvious male candidates for deputy, Tide was forced to make Slash the new one.
They arrived in their new home after 9 months of journeying, and started to rebuild their battered and bruised pack. Slash seemed to actually make a good deputy, even if his power sometimes went to his head. But after a whole year and 3/4, there was a horrible argument between Slash and Tide over the positions of the main boundaries. Tide rightfully stated that if they went too far, they could walk into trouble. But Slash argued back, saying their territory was pitifully small, and they were not a weak group anymore. Tide won the argument after pinning him down and reminding Slash that he was only a deputy, not the alpha male.
That same night, Tide went missing, and none of the pack could find any scent of him anywhere. Far out from the camp they found traces of his blood, but only tiny amounts, not enough to class as his death. However, after days of searching, they found utterly nothing, and pronounced him dead. They never did find out what happened to him, as they didn't know about the argument between he and his son, Slash. But had they known, things might have been very different.
Of course, with Tide gone, Slash could now be titled the new alpha male of the Hawks, and he was very pleased with himself. The position of deputy was normally picked by the oldest alpha, but Slash didn't like his mother's choice of deputy, that being Eclipse, but she never found out, and demanded that she chose Ivy, a fairly low-rank wolf, but Slash's fancy. Regretfully, Beam agreed. She was getting older and didn't have the energy to argue with him anymore.
Not very long passed. Around 4 months. No one really kept track of time too well, when another tragedy struck. On a hunting trip, Slash was with his mother and a few other wolves, who were stalking a group of elk. when he told the aging wolf to run in totally the wrong direction, assuring her it was part of a new plan to bring down more prey. Of course, as she ran out in front of an entire herd of charging elk, she was killed instantly, spending her last moments frozen to the ground, looking at many pairs of legs running at her.
The hawks were horrified at this, but they all assumed it was a terrible accident, as no one had heard Slash directing her towards the herd. And then, as the position of alpha female was opened up, Ivy became the new one. Slash was over the moon, but not the white one, the dark black one that slices through space around Jupiter, matching his heart. Ivy seemed to dote upon him, but Slash was only using her, simply as she was a good wolf to carry his pups. He'd liked her at first, but changed his mind about love during his time as alpha male.
4 months passed, and Ivy had her first litter of pups, but it was a complete disaster. The first came out fine, this one being Blackberry, but the other 4 she was expecting were knotted up together in her womb, and after 3 days of struggling, Bone the healer was forced to feed her yew and aspen leaves to kill the pups, so Ivy herself wouldn't die, and they were stillborn. Slash was mortified at having just one son, but Blackberry was hardy and strong, and Slash had to admit he was pleased at least with him.
But one son is never enough to any wolf, especially not Slash. So another litter was born 5 months later. This time the birth was simple, and all 4 survived it. But as if fate was trying to mock him, the 2 young females were taken by birds of prey when Ivy turned her back to get some prey. This time, however, Slash wasn't as worried, as he thought females weren't much use to him, but he was still irritated at having only 3 sons, and he wanted some more. His newer children, Needles and Fox, were growing up well, when Slash thought that after 4 months they should try one last time.
And after a total of 9 months, Ivy had her last litter. This one was the biggest disaster of them all. She had 3 this time, 2 males and 1 rather small female. Slash was in his element as he now had 5 sons and 1 female, just in case, as he referred to her. However, these ones were born in January, around the coldest time of the year, and illness struck the whole pack. 1 elder died, and both male pups lost their lives. However, the little female lived through it, but this did not please Slash. He said he was fed up of losing pups, and forbid Ivy to ever bear his pups again, as he thought that she had a bad omen.
It is against a wolf's way to have a different mate after having had pups, so Slash has basically vowed himself never to have pups again, and that was final. Ivy still looked after the little female, Marigold, well, and brought her up with a good heart, but she was almost totally blanked by her father, with only ever a few words spoken to her by him. All the other pack members envied her as she got first rights to many things like food and shelter, and she was such a happy little thing, but she did not feel lucky, and spent most of her nights crying herself to sleep. But Marigold was not what was occupying Slash's thoughts.
He had gazed across the Great Lake many times, and one afternoon decided to travel across the ice bridge to see what was over there. This day was the same that he took the life, the pride, and the sanity of 3 pups.
3 pups. My pups.
This is where our story need not carry on.
You have heard enough. There is no need to repeat history.
But now you know, Slash was not always like he is today.
Greed, power, and lust drove him to this.
And it is up to us
To stop him.